What is going on, IF Warrior? So here we have Dr. Heoper, who will explain to us why intermittent fasting actually helps you gain weight, not lose it. Why? Because of its incredibly negative effect on your hormone. And he's going to break this down. So let's see what he has to say in terms of this. And he just keep in mind, he is a DC doctor. So that is a chiropractor, which means you don't necessarily have to get you don't have to go to medical school, or you don't have to get a degree or a PhD or anything like that to be a chiropractor. So a chiropractor is not a medical doctor, just to put that out there. But then again, just because you're a medical doctor doesn't always mean that you know what, weight loss, diet and weight loss is not really your field. They still lie within the medical field, the medicine area. But that's besides the point. Let's see what he has to say, and let's see why is it that intermittent fasting actually will help you gain weight, not lose it. Let's take a look here.
If you want to guarantee that you're going to destroy your thyroid and metabolic health, I recommend intermittent fasting. Because intermittent fasting is absolutely terrible for this. When you fast, your body goes into a catabolic state, and that catabolic state causes your adrenal glands to go on high alert. Your adrenal glands have to try to create the energy deficiency that you're artificially creating in your body. The adrenal glands begin creating hormones to tell your liver to break down stored glycogen into glucose. And if you run out of that, then you go into a catabolic state where you start to break down your muscle tissue to make sugar. So why not just give your body the fuel that it requires in order to keep a high metabolic state? That's what I do. That's what I recommend for people. So if you're somebody that insists on intermittent fasting, good luck keeping your thyroid happy.
Okay, so let's talk about it. He says that when you're deprived of energy, by the way, to lose weight, you have to deprive your body of energy. You have to do that. Thyroid is not so much affected by the energy deprivation; is affected more by the by nutrient deprivation, right? So when people do fasting for long periods of time, there tends to be a change in your T3, right? Your T3 kind of goes down and your RT3 goes up. So like the reverse of of your T3, and those are things that are affected by your thyroid, right? Your thyroid affects those things so that you're consistently burning calories, because it's revving your metabolism, and it's helping that take place. But one thing that he said that's just incredibly misleading is that he went from glycogen depletion to automatically muscle breakdown for glucose. Now, that does not happen. There is a period in between glycogen depletion and muscle breakdown that is called ketone usage, where your body, instead of breaking down muscle, and because it doesn't have any glucose available within your glycogen because you've depleted it, it goes and through your liver through a process called beta hydroxybutyrate and creates ketones. But there is some truth to what he's saying, because it could only use ketones for about 70% of its energy. So there's a certain time where it will cut off its usage to ketones and decide to dip into things like muscle tissue and muscle fiber to turn that into glucose so that it can get its glucose fix. Contrary to popular belief, guys, your body and your brain unfortunately prefers glucose over ketones. I've seen people, even in my comment section, say, are you sure that it prefers glucose over ketones? The easiest way to know if it prefers glucose over ketones is the fact that when there's glucose, it doesn't make ketones and not use the glucose. It uses the glucose. If you're eating glucose, is going to take in the glucose. If you're storing glucose and you're not eating glucose, it's not going to go, there's stored glucose and then there's ketones that I can make. You know what? Let me make ketones and leave this stored glucose over here because I prefer ketones so much. No, the fact that you have to burn through all of your glucose availability before you even tap into ketones should tell you that your brain and your body prefers glucose over ketones, which is one of the reasons why only 70% of it can be used, and then it does have to tap into muscle. But what he's saying is incredibly misleading because, as we mentioned, he skipped that entire middle part. But there has been studies done on thyroid, hyperthyroidism, where about 5% of Americans suffer from this, where there's an issue with their thyroid, thus they have problems when they're at a caloric deficit. But here's the thing, it's caloric deficits that cause this more than anything. So prolonged fasting will be really bad if you have hyperthyroidism. But even in the studies where they saw that thyroid was affected through fasting, when you don't have hyperthyroidism, which is 95% of Americans, it returns as soon as it goes back to normal as soon as you start eating. It kind of goes into this somewhat defensive state if you've prolonged your fast, but it goes back to normal when you start eating. But even 16-hour fasts are recommended for a lot of people who have thyroid issues because it's not that long. I think people kind of smash together prolonged fasting and intermittent fasting and make them one and the same. They just use the word fasting and just carpet bomb it for everything. So if there's a study that shows people who fasted for 1 week having thyroid issues and seeing their T3 levels go out of whack, they'll do videos like this and say intermittent fasting proves that it's bad for your thyroid because this study showed that fasting that, and they'll keep interlacing fasting and prolonged fasting and intermittent fasting and short-term fasting, and they'll make it all just one blurry, muddy thing where you just really don't know what exactly they're talking about, but you think it might be what you're doing because you're doing something that has the word fasting in it. Intermittent fasting and prolonged fasting, two completely different things. This thyroid issue does not necessarily affect intermittent fasting, nor is it strictly an intermittent fasting thing or a fasting thing. It is simply a caloric restriction thing. When you are deprived of energy, it's because you are losing weight. So there's going to be pros and cons to that, guys, no matter what you do. It's the balance between those pros and cons that where you have to ensure that you're getting the nutrients that you need when you're eating, that you're making sure that you're not aggressively below calories when you're eating. So hopefully this video has helped you guys. And of course, as always, we will see you on Friday. Peace out, guys.